Back to the Echo, and tonight we're talking about private-public partnership. Now, how has the public sector supported the private sector to create that enabling business environment for them to be able to operate and then generate jobs? Tonight, we're talking about one very sector that needs a lot of support, the yam sector. The Ghana Root and Crop Tubers Exporters Union have, through the BUSAC Fund, undertake some advocacy that has seen some improvement in efforts at promoting that sector. We'll talk very deeply about that later on. But first, let's look at this because the advocacy has seen some gains made. And so the Exporters Union has been talking about it. Let's watch this. We'll come back to the studio. The concerns over the quality of yams being produced and exported led to the development of the yam sector development strategy. Exporters were unable to meet quality and quantity demanded. Between 2010 and 2011, stakeholders engaged the Export Development and Agricultural Fund, EDIF, to fashion out an integrated supply chain management system in order for producers to meet standards for size and quality for the export market. The result was a yam sector development strategy which was led by the private sector. And with the support of the BUSAC Fund, the advocacy to deal with the gaps identified in the strategy was embarked on. There were stakeholder consultations and workshops to address the shortfalls. The Ghana Root Crops and Tubers Exporters Union, GROTU, is now a key stakeholder and its role has been fashioned out. Other achievements include post-harvest management mechanism to ensure farmers produce the right quality for exports. The strategy is now focusing on increasing tonnage from 26,000 to 400,000 by the year 2020. This is expected to give members of GROTU increased exports and more revenue. And that is the story so far. My guest in the studio to my extreme left is one of the key figures during the advocacy, that particular advocacy, Nana Kojo Adentwi. And then to my immediate left is the executive member of Ghana Root and Crop Tubers Exporters Union, Mr. Kwabena Taylor. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let's start from Mr. Taylor. This yam export strategy, briefly, what has been its status so far?
The strategy came out with 5 milestones. And out of the 5 milestones, the main one that has actually seen a great deal of implementation is the empowerment of women in the yam business, well, either as farmers or as traders. Because it has had some funding from outside the country, supported by International Trade Center, Geneva.
That's one of the key things. But before I speak to Nana Kojo, who was a key member of this advocacy, what has been the success story of this advocacy that resulted in the yam sector development strategy?
The key success is that we've been able to sensitize our own members as well as farmers of the need to produce according to international requirements, and also then to maintain Ghana, the reputation of Ghana yam as the preferred or premium yam on the international market.
And of course, that means that exports revenues have gone up.
Yes, export revenues have gone up over the period. For the past 5-6 years, it's been increasing, but are not at the rate that which we would have liked. Around 2010, it was around $14 million, and then it has now 2013, 2014, it hit 20 million.
All right. Nana, you then was a key player in this advocacy. The public sector the support that it gives to the private sector. How key is it in creating that enabling business environment that allows private sector organizations like the Ghana Root and Tubers Exporters Union to operate, increase revenue, create jobs, and expand the economy?
Thank you. I think basically the public sector is actually the institution that creates the platform for the private sector to operate, in the sense that whatever we're doing within the economy has to be an operation that is regulated one way or the other, and then supported to get to the expected level of development.
Right.
Now, in this particular case, the private sector operators have sought to do their business as they know it. But then the real growth we're looking for, and particularly in terms of the value that the economy attracts from the yam trade, is from the exports. The exports have demands of standards, okay, of quality that ordinarily the Ghanaian farmer and the Ghanaian trader and even the Ghanaian exporter may not be paying attention to. And so this process has helped to drum home that whole idea that do your business as you know it, but then be following certain set standards and operate within certain rules so that we can get it right. Mind you, we're looking at yam as a staple food for us and as a key export in terms of our non-traditional export commodities, okay? And both ways, it is imperative that we are putting out good quality yam, okay, for our own safety, okay? Again, yam is a key contributor to our food security because it has, by nature, it's able to survive a longer time post-harvest than a lot of other commodities or farm produce that we have. And so if we're getting it right, we are being able to harvest and retain for months without losing it. And that guarantees our security. So the private sector operators, be they the farmers, the traders, on the markets, wherever they are, need not be doing things anyway, anyhow. And it is this process that has helped to actually bring everybody's mind to this need to do things within regulated quarters, and to also ensure that certain quality standards are being achieved and maintained.
Right. Let me go back to Mr. Taylor, and particularly to talk about, again, the yam sector development strategy, because from the point of the Root and Crop Exporters, Tubers Exporters Union, some gaps were seen in the strategy. Let's quickly discuss these gaps, how they were dealt with, and what has come out of it.
Okay, let me mention two important ones. The question of seed multiplication.
Right.
You cannot have any serious production in any country if you are not looking at your seed, the seed that you plant, to give you a certain level of production. Then also, let's also look at post-harvest losses. Although in the past, yam, one could buy yam and keep it for 3-4 months. The question now is that yams don't stay that long. So it was important to look at this. Why is that yams don't stay long? So it was necessary then to look at what needed to be done, to be addressed in order to get the business right, both for the farmers and the exporters and all those other value chain actors in between.
And so those were the key issues that perhaps influence this strategy. But for the Tubers Root and Tubers Exporters Union, what is the role, your role, in ensuring that this strategy enables operators to achieve their targets as far as export revenues are concerned?
Okay, our role is that the Exporters Union is an apex body for 4 mainstream yam associations. And these associations are made up, each one is made up of farmers, traders, and exporters, and even sometimes transporters. So the role that we've been playing is to sensitize our members, create the necessary awareness that we cannot continue to do business the way we are doing it. Otherwise, we'll be losing a lot. Losses have been made by exporters, for example, who bought yams, and because they didn't buy the yams from a regulated market or from a known source, the yams ended up all getting rotten. And for the farmers too, it is important that the farmers are planting the yams according to requirements, international requirements, because if this is not done, then very soon Ghana will lose out in the international market, because the international trade now for horticultural produce is regulated. You need to have certification, you need to have traceability, because the world is very concerned about food safety, and then the source and the quality, and also the source of the produce that they are eating.
Great. Let me go to Nana Kojo Dentry. Now, again to the public-private sector collaboration. When these concerns about the need to ensure the quality of produce, the need to ensure we meet the standards. When, for instance, it was brought to the attention of the public sector, what engagements were done with the private sector organization like GrowTo to change this and ensure that we have the right quality of yam for the export market in terms of education, in terms of sensitization, in terms of workshop training for farmers? What exactly was done?
Okay, in the strategy development process,
right?
As Mr. Taylor rightly said, GrowTo, having been identified as a key stakeholder, okay, in the yam industry, was invited to send representatives to several workshops. Then we got various research institutions, we got interested parties who use yam on a daily basis as ordinary consumers, okay? And we got bankers, we got processors, all together in several workshops to discuss what had been put on the table as issues bedeviling the industry. And then we began to look at the contributions of each one of these stakeholders and began to identify what they're doing, what they're not doing, where there are gaps, what can be done, and put all of that together. So to speak specifically to the GrowTo involvement,
right.
GrowTo being, if you like, the lead organization for the exporters, okay, was then asked to table the issues relating to exports, which were consistent with what was known to the public sector in Ghana. Mind you, the public sector in Ghana is often the entity that is served with alerts in terms of bad quality or rejected produce that are exported from Ghana.
Right.
And so that information is available to the public sector. GrowTo and its allied associations are also speaking to what their own experiences are when they go about their business. And so it brings up the issues very clearly to all the stakeholders. And then it makes it easier to resolve how to attack and deal with these problems.
And of course, there have been successes, particularly with export revenues.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, he's giving you some figures. But for the interest of the public, what happens really is that, say, GROTU memberships 100 cartons of yam to a particular destination. The arrangement is that you send me the produce, I get it onto the market, I sell off, and then I pay you. And so out of 100, you find on a continuous basis people reporting that I only got 40 out of the 100, I only got 60 out of the 100 paid to me, and all of the rest is written off as losses because they got spoiled. So that's an issue that bites. So with this, they begin to say, so what can you do, or how can you help us? And so then the policy position that, so take everything through a particular exit corridor. So there's a pack house over here. This is a designated pack house for yam exports. Everybody go through there. Then you position the Standards Authority there and say, check what is going through here and be sure that they pass the quality test. Okay? And then you begin to tell, say, food research or crop research that, look, you have also been here and you've heard the stories. So give us a true list, the proper chemicals that can be applied to yam to ensure that it does not get spoiled in 2 months when it should be staying 6 months because the wrong chemicals were applied. And so that information then gets available to GROTU and the likes.
And they share with their members and the farmers associations.
So everybody now begins to work to what is known to be the good practice. All of this is happening, and we probably would have done things right. But to the importer out there in the EU, for instance, they also insist on seeing a certain mark of quality, which they have designed and developed, which we call certification. So then it becomes necessary, after you've done the good things, to bring somebody to audit your practices and give you a quality pass. Okay? And with that, you are able to then ship your yam and say, this is certified. Okay? And for that, they will give you not only the value of your yam, but they will buy at a premium.
Right.
And that is how come we have been able to cut the losses and upscale the revenues through premiums and so on. And that's how come the numbers are rising.
Rising. Great. Let's get ready to wrap up the conversation. But quickly, Mr. Taylor, so the issue of pack houses, very, very key to exporters and all that.
Yes, it is. And we, in our own business plan, had made plans to have at least 5 pack houses in the yam growing areas. And that these pack houses, although go to them pack houses, they are actually collection points. Because we collect the yams will be collected from the farm gate, and a preliminary sorting and grading is done, and then the yams will be transported to the members' pack houses, which we also, through Ghana Standard Authority and GEPA, Ghana Export Promotion Authority, we are certifying.
Let's wrap up the conversation. And could you let me quickly put in this now? All these strategy, these processes had been done with the support of the BUSAC Fund. Now, how do you think that fund has contributed to private sector organizations getting that enabling business environment to operate?
Good. I think that basically the private sector operators, working with them through the strategy development process, were able to put their issues out there, and it was clear to the various participants that they can tell certain aspects of the story better because they are able to practically touch base with the people who do the wrong things. Say Mr. Taylor here has put together a set of 10 farmers who produce for him. And he's beginning to tell them that don't apply this chemical again, and get it told to all of your peers in this Adria area. If you do that for me, I sure will buy all of your produce within the months of October and March, okay, which are of export quality. Straight away, that issue will sink in with the farmers. And so we think that in the past, they may not have done it because that calls for investing their capital to get about and tell these stories, or to give them the needed support by way of sometimes getting them the right chemicals rather than wait for maybe MOFA to do it in its sweet time. And so when they got the support from BUSAC and were able to do some of these things, they helped to fast track the pace of change and the improvements that are desired in the practices of the farmers and the traders and so on. And also, they are able to get more and more people who are buying from them as exporters, okay, properly told how they're doing these things, because now they began to document things and share with them, okay. And for instance, GrowTo by itself has in the past 2 years been able to engage the press. You, I suppose, are inviting for this to be done, but they have been able to take the news to them or set the stage and explain the issues and put it out there, okay, and sometimes even tell the story of what to expect in terms of the yield.
Okay.
So I think it has produced
great results. Mr. Taylor, finally for you, GrowTo and your collaboration support from BUSAC, briefly on it before we wrap up.
Well, it has been a tremendous help to us to be able to maintain our position with the public agencies, because the contributions that we've been able to make towards policy as a result of the help that we've had from that, and then made the public sector to realize the importance of having a body like GrowTo, which collates the information for members and sends them to the public sector to act on the information.
I'm grateful. Mr. Kwabena Taylor is the executive member of the Ghana Root and Tubers Exporters Union of Ghana. Nana Kojo Adentwi was a key player, a key stakeholder in that advocacy that saw the yam sector development strategy. I'm grateful that you stayed as part of the show.